All right, everyone. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Another amazing day and night of Saturday college football, week 5. We say that every week in college football. Some games disappoint, but overall doesn't disappoint. That's what it is. Let's run through the scores, then we'll take calls. I want to run through all the scores and get everybody caught up and my thoughts on each particular game as we run it down. 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter at Clemson. Tigers lead NC State 30-13 in what is probably the key game in the ACC this season. Clemson and NC State going back and forth in the first half in a defensive struggle, and the Tigers have dominated the second half. You got Pace, Shipley, and Moffitt at running back. DJ's played a nice game. He's got 73 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And again, Clemson over NC State in a huge win for Clemson after looking a bit shaky last week. They win it 30-13, 2 minutes left in the game. And Devin Leary, a deflected interception there, and Clemson missing 4 key defensive players. No Brian Versee, one of the best players in college football. Xavier Thomas missed the game, 2 defensive backs as well. KJ Henry up front for Clemson is a monster. All right, Indiana, Nebraska. Husker fans rejoice. The top shelf is reserved for winners tonight. North Carolina, Nebraska, Michigan, and Utah. Why those 4? I don't know. They were the first 4 helmets of winners I grabbed. Nebraska finally beats an FBS team. We were getting close to relegating Nebraska to FCS play, kicking them out of the Big Ten. 9 consecutive losses. They finally win. Well, you know what? Hold your breath because there is 2.5 minutes left in the game and Nebraska's up 35-21. If anybody can blow this game, it would be Nebraska. 2:49 left. They lead by 2 touchdowns. Okay. San Jose State on top of Wyoming with about a minute left, 33-16. UAB Rice, 28-24 Rice. It looks like it's just gone final. All right, huge happenings at Heinz Field. Listen to this one. 3:51 left in the fourth quarter. Georgia Tech leads Pitt 19-7. Keaton Slovis has only 138 yards passing on 16-31 in a season in which North Carolina can't stop a bloody nose. Duke is winning games left and right. They beat Virginia today. Virginia Tech is horrible. Miami's horrible. Who's going to win the ACC Coastal? It should be Pitt, but no, they're losing to Georgia Tech by 12 points. So Jeff Collins out the door has been a instant remedy for Georgia Tech. Colorado is one of the worst teams in football, of course, and not just talking about the Power 5. They're losing at Arizona right now, 26-7 in the first half. USC-Arizona State, of course. Keep it locked in here at the Voice of College Football. We will have USC postgame with Tim, Tony, and Rick after USC and Arizona State. Trojans lead in the first 14-7. Ditto. We will have postgame of Oregon-Stanford with Ben over on the Oregon channel. No score. They just started. Georgia. This was a game that was not on my radar whatsoever. Didn't even consider this game. Had so many games I wanted to see tonight. Did not consider Georgia, Missouri in any such way. 30-point spread in this game. Missouri, I'm telling you, should have won this game. I watched from mid-third quarter on. There was a sequence in this game in which Missouri led 22-19. And hats off to the Missouri kicker, Mavis, who missed that horrible kick, I believe a PAT and a field goal against Auburn that would have won the game last week. So he missed those kicks. They lost the game in overtime. He comes back to drill some 3 different times. He hit field goals in this game. And Missouri led this game 22-19. They had the ball. They had just completed a pass downfield to put themselves close to the red zone with about 4 minutes left in the game. But the play got called back for an offensive lineman, hands in the face. That set him up at 3rd and 22. Couldn't overcome that. They punt the ball back to Georgia. Stetson Bennett, after playing an awful game in which he missed a lot of throws, got it together. And Georgia goes down the field, scores the game-winning touchdown, wins 26-22. So what could have been a monumental upset in college football, Georgia survives 26-22 at Mizzou. FIU, 1 week after losing 73-0, they beat New Mexico State 21-7. Okay, huge happenings in Fayetteville. Bryce Young, sprained shoulder, leaves the game. Bama goes up 28-0. They blow it. It's a 28-23 game, but they close strong with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. Had a 77-yard touchdown run, 4 for 9 passing, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs was awesome. I heard a comparison today between Jahmyr Gibbs and Alvin Kamara. I'm sold on that. That's a good call right there. Jace McClellan also with some big plays in that game. Bama impressive at Arkansas, 49-26. Ohio State dump trucks Rutgers 49-10 as expected. Buckeyes roll there. Mayan Williams tied an Ohio State rushing record with 5 touchdowns held by Keith Byers and Pete Johnson. Michigan, Iowa, 27-14. Wolverines win. Offense looked really good early in the game. They slumped in the second half with a 20-0 lead. Iowa was this close to making it 20-14 with about 4 minutes left in the game and possibly stirring up some drama. But Michigan stopped them on 4th and 2, and Michigan wins. Another big day for Blake Corum. Ole Miss, Kentucky, tremendous game here. Rebels win 22-19. Last 3 Kentucky drives were in the red zone, and they fumbled each time they were in the red zone. The final 3 drives of the game, and fumbled each time. And Ole Miss hangs on in a tremendous game. Love that game. Watched it. Will Levis is the real deal. He will be a top 5 pick in the NFL. Judkins had a tremendous game again for Ole Miss, running the football with 106 yards. Rebs win. They're 5-0. Oklahoma State over Baylor. That was an exciting game. That was a thrilling game. If you did not catch it, Dave Aranda had some of the most ridiculous 4th down calls that you will ever see in coaching. And I don't say that as a slam on Dave Aranda. I just tip my cap. He went for it 4th and 1 at his own 14. He went for it 4th and 5 at his own 25 to try to keep in this game because Baylor could not stop Oklahoma State. They still lose the game 36-25. By the way, they made both of those 4th down plays. But again, Baylor wins it. Oklahoma State wins at 36-25. My screen keeps blanking out. It's really strange. It's kind of tough to read the scores off when the screen continues to blank out. It's completely blank. All right, I'll go off the top of my head. Wake Forest, Florida State. Wake out early 28-7, held on in the 4th quarter. JT meeting Jordan Travis. Great first drive. Sam Hartman was exceptional. But really, it was the Wake rushing attack. Surprisingly, against the Florida State defense, Justice Ellison had a big day. Florida State's got to find a field goal kicker. They missed 2 more kicks Ryan Fitzgerald's 4 of 9 this season. They lose that one 31-21. Maryland, Michigan State, Terps win at home. I didn't see much of that game, 27-14. They cover the spread there. Purdue, Minnesota. I thought this to be the point spread of the day. Grab it. I don't know why Minnesota was a 12.5-point favorite. Once it was announced Aidan O'Connell would start for Purdue, there's your upset in the making right there. Purdue wins at 20-10. They scored 10 in the fourth quarter. Purdue's defensive backs were exceptional in this game against Tanner Morgan and company. Charlie Jones, one of the best wide receivers in college football. One NFL scout compared him this week to Deshaun Jackson. Illinois, Wisconsin. Oh my goodness. Do you see what Brett Bielema is doing at Illinois right now? They're 4-1. They barely lost a game that they blew against Indiana. They should be 5-0. They trucked Wisconsin today, 34-10. Chase Brown's one of the best backs that you have probably not seen play. Speaking of which, not seeing anybody play, Kansas is 5-0. They beat Iowa State 14-11. They're 5-0. They're 2-0 in the Big 12. Give it up for Kansas. TCU, this might be the score of the day. Shoelace Sooner, we apologize. TCU scored 55 on Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel, 7 of 16 off to a rough start, is in concussion protocol. The OU defense for a second consecutive week was completely throttled. Texas, West Virginia. Again, my screen's blank. I don't know what the final score was. I know Texas was up 38-20 late in that ball game. I saw Xavier Worthy make a ridiculous catch off a deflection in the end zone, but Texas way better than West Virginia. Kansas State, Adrian Martinez, they win again this week. Second consecutive performance by Adrian Martinez with over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, 4 touchdowns for AM2. Deuce Vaughn, $170 on the ground. Impressive performance there. How about Utah, Oregon State? That was a 21-16 game in the third quarter, and then Utah put it on overdrive, 42-16. Cam Rising had 4 TDs. Clark Phillips had 3 picks, including a pick 6. Chance Nolan had to leave the game with a neck strain for Oregon State, and Ben Gulbranson took over the backup quarterback for Oregon State and threw 3 picks. All right, I think we have pretty much covered the gamut across college football. Let's go to the calls right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate y'all being here. Let people know out there on social media that we're here talking college football. We would love to get, when there's big news in college football, we've had as many as, when was that? Scott Frost got fired, about 3 weeks ago? We had like 1,200 people on here. I wonder why we can't have like 12 or 1,300 people on here on a Saturday night call-in show. Mystifies me. If people that are that interested and obviously get the notifications, we should have a much better showing on these call-in shows. So let people know that we're here talking college football with all of you on Saturday night. All right, to Real MVP, what's going on tonight? Leading us off.
Mark, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Not mine, but the Kentucky Wildcats had a brutal loss.
Yeah, it was.
I've been a fan when Kentucky was 40-point, losing to Vandy by 40.
Yep.
Could only beat Kent State and Western Kentucky, and this feeling of close loss when you should have won the game is worse than that. I would rather just get blown out than be close. And the worst part is Kentucky had the game-winning touchdown pass in their hand.
Yes.
But an illegal motion on a bang-bang play costed them the game. I don't see any way Ole Miss scores in the 50-some seconds. It wasn't like they were driving up and down the field all day long, especially in the second half. And just for that mental error to cost you the game is brutal.
I agree. I was watching the end of the game. It was an exciting game. And like you mentioned, Ole Miss was the better team in the first half, but Kentucky was the better team in the second half. Very impressed with Will Levis. But, man, 3 turnovers the last 3 possessions after your team drove all the way down the field, fumble, all the way down the field, fumble, all the way down the field, fumble. And as you mentioned, the play before the fumble to end the game I think it was like a 3rd and 2, and they threw the fade to the end zone. It was a great catch by
Dane
blindsided, and there you go.
Yeah, it was tough. And I think Will Levis is a great quarterback. He might end up this season being the best quarterback, period. With his stature, his size, his mobility, and he might be the first quarterback taken in the NFL draft. Heck, he might be the first overall pick in the NFL draft because Josh Allen is the hottest name in the NFL. There's some comparisons out there that Will Levis is the next Josh Allen. I'm not here to speculate on how true that is. I'm just saying they're out there. But you've got to let go of the ball sooner. Some of those sacks, some of those fumbles were on him, not the offensive line. Now, the offensive line played bad. They didn't give Rodriguez enough lanes to run through, and there was a few collapses that were way, way too quick. But you can't expect 5, 6, 7 seconds in the pocket every time and try to make something when there isn't anything there. He just needs to know when to take the next down and live. Because at the end of the game, Kentucky was only down 3. If you just take the sack, if you just run the ball, that's something else I don't understand. Why don't you run the ball if you're inside the 10-yard line or inside the 20? Just run the ball. If you run the ball, you get 5 yards. Hurry up, spike it. You're in fine position. But instead, we're trying to throw. I just don't get it.
Especially when there's 50 seconds left in the clock. And as you mentioned, even though I wouldn't be too confident that Ole Miss could score, we see it all the time. If you give up the football and score with 50 seconds left in the game, then the other team has plenty of time to bring it down, as opposed to at least giving the running game a chance, and you burn the clock, and maybe you score with 10 seconds left in the game, and it's pretty much over.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or it would force it into overtime because special teams for Kentucky was disastrous. There's no other word to say. You had an easy field goal, a relatively easy field goal, and then 2 extra points. 2, not 1, but 2 extra points. Mark, I thought extra points were supposed to be give me points. Have you ever seen anything like that where an extra point gets blocked and then the holder on the very next extra point just completely whiffs on the ball?
Yes, I heard about that. I did not see it, but yeah, you left points on the field. You blew the game in special teams. You know, for Kentucky to be on the road, fumble the ball 3 consecutive times to end the game in the red zone after you drove the length of the field, have all the gaps that you just mentioned in special teams, throw the game-winning touchdown pass that gets called back, and only lose the game 22-19. You know, yeah, that is a rough one. That is a rough one because I think they were the better team.
Yeah, and I've got to give credit to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they went out there, they won the football game, they moved to 5-0. They'll probably be ranked in the top 10, and they got everything in front of them, and they look to have another historic season down there in the Grove. So you got to give congrats to Ole Miss.
Yeah, 5-0, and they've got a really good defense. People don't realize because when Lane Kiffin first got there, their defense was awful. But they've really recruited on that side of the ball, developed, got a lot of transfers in, and the defense is pretty damn good.
Yeah, and so I was going through the phases of, oh my gosh, is it over? Is Kentucky potentially winning the SEC East already over after only a month of football? But then I saw Georgia play. And yeah, if you want to give anybody hope, just watch Georgia play football in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they ain't playing good. If Tennessee played Georgia right now, I think Tennessee wins.
Shoot, Kent State almost won. Yeah, it was this is really after that Oregon game. I watched a little bit of South Carolina. So I locked in on that first, and I will blame myself along with everybody else, or a number of people thinking, okay, this is a foregone conclusion. This is the best team in the country. They're going to roll to 12 wins and they're just killing everyone. And not really paid too much attention the last couple of weeks, but man, once it got to halftime, a little past halftime, and I was watching other games, I thought, no, I'm watching this Georgia-Missouri game. I want to see this. And Missouri kept like I thought, I'm going to flip it on. It's 19-9, and Georgia's going to score like 2 touchdowns, and boom, and this is going to be like a 28-point game by the end of the game. No. Like I say, there was about 4 minutes left, and Missouri completed a ball down the middle. It was beautiful. Brady Cook to one of his slot receivers. They picked up like 25 yards to put him down to like the 25. They're already up by 3. I'm thinking, oh man, this is really interesting. Flag on the field, hands to the face. You bring it all the way back, and now it's 3rd and 22, and there's no way they convert that. They punt, and I just thought, okay, that did it.
Yeah, and I mean, probably the most shocking thing, and I think everyone would agree with it, but shocking is Georgia Tech has looked better today playing football.
Yes.
Than Georgia.
Well, that Georgia Tech is beating Pitt. There is only 1 minute left in the game. It's 26-14. So they should be able to hang on to that. If Nebraska could hang on to a lead, then yes, then Georgia Tech should be able to hang on with 1 minute left. So the ACC Coastal is officially a dumpster fire, but I find it a fun dumpster fire to figure out who's going to win and if they're actually going to be like 6-6 when they go to the ACC championship game. Maybe it's going to be Duke.
Oh, that'd be something. Something that surprised me about Georgia was their defense. I know they lost a ton of players, but I wasn't expecting Missouri just to be able to willingly move the ball up and down the field between the 20s. Now, once it got in the red zone, Georgia's defense hunkered down and played incredibly well. But I tell you what, it looked like they weren't playing anything. There was almost no resistance. Big plays, busted coverages. There was one play where Missouri's quarterback outran a defensive lineman or maybe a linebacker, and he just popped the ball over like 3 Georgia players for like a 30-yard gain. And I'm just like, this is Georgia doing it? I wouldn't have ever expected them to be that undisciplined.
Yeah, I was surprised. We are just not used to seeing anybody be able to run the ball, and let alone Missouri. What have they done this season? They lost to Kansas State by 4 touchdowns. Like, what have they done for us to have any hope that Mizzou would be the team to challenge Georgia? And I just keep watching this game, and I just keep seeing Missouri running basic running plays and gashing Georgia. Didn't pull it off.
And I mean, for Kentucky, our season is fine. I mean, we lost to an SEC West team. If Kentucky wins out, they still win the SEC East. There isn't a team on their schedule outside of Georgia and probably Tennessee. I would say they're underdogs too. So 9-3 certainly on the table. You split Tennessee, Ole Miss. You're 10-2. You make a New Year's Six bowl. You have a great year, and that was kind of the expectation going into it. There's some teams out there though, Mark. Their expectations will not be met, and the primary team is Oklahoma.
Whoo!
Is Oklahoma the worst team in the Big 12 right now?
Oh, man, the worst team in the Big 12. You know what? They might be. The way they're playing, what you just said is going to cause a bunch of people to be like, oh, he's nuts, he's insane, crazy. Forget the name of the team. Forget their colors. Forget their brand. Yeah, they're playing the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, and
they are.
None of my upsets that I thought were going to happen turned out to happen. But I think the Alabama losing Bryce Young. I know it's crazy, but they get Texas A&M next week, Mark. Texas A&M's 3-2. They lost to Mississippi State today. This is kind of where they were last year when they beat Alabama.
Yep.
Any possibility that Texas A&M does the same thing as they did last year?
In Tuscaloosa, consider that Bryce Young, we don't know if he's going to be able to play next week. Jalen Milroe, a very talented quarterback, but he is a runner. Not much of a thrower at this point in his career. So that will limit Bama in the passing game. So they go from the best quarterback in the country, or one of the three best, let's say, to, who knows, wild card, athlete. But Texas A&M, they got whipped today. I didn't see much of the game, but every time I flipped to it, because at some point I thought, yeah, I'm going to record the second half. It should be like down to the wire. Because I picked Mississippi State to win, but I thought it'd be close enough that they, it was a 4-point spread. It was going to be a really close game. Every time I flipped this game on, Max Johnson was getting sacked. It was just, Jimbo Fisher. They're probably going to be 3-3 next week. They still have to play Ole Miss. Auburn's no joke. I know you don't like Auburn. You think they're going to lose every game, but you see how competitive they were tonight. They could beat Texas A&M. It's possible.
It sounds like you're putting Jimbo Fisher on the hot seat, Monk.
If they didn't have to pay him off so much money, I think he would be on the hot seat. And I know for Texas A&M, that doesn't come into consideration as much as everybody else, but they got to pay him like $90 million. That's ridiculous. Yeah, he's not doing a good job coaching, leading that program right now, except for recruiting. They just signed another 5-star. They just signed the number 1 defensive lineman in the country. Didn't sign him. Got the commitment from him, of course, signing days in 3 months. DJ Hicks.
Well, I think it's official. Georgia Tech has defeated Pittsburgh, so wow. Congratulations to them.
The Coastal is crazy.
Who's the favorite?
North Carolina.
They could finish up 7-5 or 6-6.
Yep.
In any other competitive division. Like, you put them, North Carolina, you put them in the Pac-12. They could lose to Oregon State, Utah, UCLA, Washington, USC, Arizona.
How about UCLA?
Yeah, they're 5-0. They look legit. I think it might show us something more about Washington, though. I think that Michigan State win was kind of a mirage of how good it was, because Michigan State has looked horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to Maryland by 2 touchdowns today. And they got crushed by Minnesota, who Minnesota went out on the at home and lost to Purdue. I tell you, which division is the most competitive in college football? You've got a few, the Coastal and the Big Ten West.
We'll explore this, and then I'll let you go because the calls are piling up. The most competitive division in college football, if you're talking about quality and competitiveness, is I guess the Big Ten Western Division. Although I'm not gonna tout it as that much quality. Illinois might be in the race now. Purdue might be in the race. Minnesota, Iowa, etc. But just competitiveness top to bottom would be the ACC Coastal. Anybody can beat anybody.
I got to give you a little. I got to say, you were kind of disrespectful in the Big Ten West, Mark. You didn't give Illinois their proper respect. Illinois could easily win that division.
What did I? No, that's what I just said.
Oh, I thought you skipped over
them. The first thing that came out of my mouth, I said Illinois is in the race.
Oh, I would classify them as the favorites at this point.
Well, let's not go overboard.
Well,
all right, man.
Yeah, I'll see you. Congratulations, Ole Miss. Hit the like and subscribe button. Good luck to everyone's teams next week.
Thanks, man. The real MVP leading us off. He is quick on the trigger. He must be. This is just hands down. He just jumps on it. Notre Dame off this week. So Will's blood pressure's in good shape.
Yeah.
How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. I made a bet for Kentucky, minus 2.5 for the alternative spread. I was really hoping they would pull it off. And then, no. I was like, yes.
What's this alternative spread business? They were getting 6.5 or 7.
So it was plus 240 for Kentucky to win by 2.5.
Why do you guys love parlays and teasers and it's so skewed, just the line and the money that's paid out is not even to what they're keeping, and then when they pile on the parlays and the teasers, they make it even worse. You're fighting uphill.
I know, but
Take
I
the
put it
7 and be happy with a win.
Yeah. Well, I put in 20 at everyone's saying Notre Dame finally beat the bye. Thanks, guys. Yep, we did it. We beat the bye. But yeah, I don't know.
ACC Coastal. See, if Notre Dame was in the ACC Coastal, your season would still be worth something. You'd still be playing for something right now.
Well, we got to keep the recruiting momentum going. I think USC's looking beatable against Arizona State. Clemson, they beat NC State, but I definitely think those are 2 winnable games. I definitely think we can win out and finally win a New Year's Six bowl game.
Oh, man, you've already jumped from beating North Carolina to winning a New Year's Six bowl game.
Well, yeah, that's what
Did you see Clemson play tonight?
They didn't look bad. They looked good, but I feel like they're beatable, especially in South Bend.
Everybody's beatable, but the Notre Dame's got to get a lot better to deal with those guys. They were missing 4 defensive starters tonight.
Well, the bye weeks to get better, and I really hope
some of them are studs. So, yeah.
Well, I'm confident that the O-line will get better. Like, we got Harry Heastand back. I'm confident the O-line will get better. Like, is Harsin employed Monday morning? That's a good question, John.
Did you see the play that he pulled inside the 10-yard line, trying to take?
Oh my god!
The running back.
Oh my gosh!
You better be sure when you do something like that. And the running back didn't know what he was doing and still threw the ball. And it was.
I watched that live, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me, Brian Harsin? Do you want the buyout? Like, did you call that play for the buyout?" I was pulling for Auburn.
I was too.
Well,
I was going to make a list and maybe cut a video of all the people that I'm rooting for in college football. And one of them is Brian Harsin. I don't know anything about the man. I'm not rooting for him for any personal reasons. Like, I think he's some upstanding kind of guy, but just for sheer, just kind of in your face college football kind of thing. I would love to see him like run the table. It would just be funny to me.
Yeah. I don't understand. I'm fine. If you do that at the 50-yard line, I'm like, okay, I kind of see where you're coming from. But in the red zone, like, I'm not the smartest college football person. But I think even my mom would say that's a terrible idea to run a play like that in the red zone.
Yeah, they were a little bit. You usually don't see that play run that close to the goal line.
I just, what were you thinking?
There's too much traffic for a running back who doesn't know what they're doing.
Troy V with the 1991 or I guess 1992 Sugar Bowl reference. Good one, Troy. We won that bowl game against Florida, by the way.
Florida. Rocked Florida. I remember it well.
Yeah. I remember they were being served at some restaurant, and they're like, Cheerios deserve to be in the bowl game more than you do before that Florida game, and then they beat Florida with the bus.
Those were the good old days, winning major bowl game for Notre Dame.
You
missed it.
Yeah, I missed it.
You've never seen Notre Dame win a major bowl game.
No, I haven't. But the Music City Bowl against LSU was nice, and the Camping World Bowl against LSU; those were good wins. But
years ago, I would have never guessed that I'd be talking to a Notre Dame fan who would be proud about the Music City Bowl and Camping World Bowl victories.
Yeah, well, I mean, after that game, I'm like, okay, give me something. Like, because 2014, after that Florida State loss, the season just fell apart. I'm like, oh, give me something to feel good about. And they gave me something to feel good about. And then if Brian Kelly would have hired competent coordinators in 2015, I think they would have had a great chance of would have actually stood a chance against Alabama, but they didn't. They kept Mike Sanford Jr. and Brian Van Gorder, and we fell short against Clemson, which is like, and Stanford. Like if Kirby and Lane were like, do you know that team, right? The roster on that team, Mark?
Which year?
2015.
Sure.
If Kirby and Lane were heading that instead of Mike Sanford and Brian Van Gorder, don't you think they could win a national championship?
The 2015.
With the roster that Notre Dame had that year?
I would not have thought that they would have won the national championship, but I think that they were a competent playoff team that would have played well. But Bama, Clemson.
That Clemson game was that we had that game. Like we could have won that game if we didn't make stupid mistakes at the beginning of that game.
Sure, that was the game.
And Clemson almost beat Alabama that. I mean, I know it's like math and stuff, but I felt like there was a universe.
There was also a team that probably had more talent than anybody in the country that didn't make the playoff.
Yeah, that's true.
You know who I'm talking about?
Buckeyes.
Yes. So, yeah, I think Notre Dame was extremely good that year. Absolutely.
Most talented team in my lifetime, Notre Dame team.
Yeah. So, lost the Clemson game and then lost to Stanford, right?
Oh, my gosh, that Stanford game is
right?
The most painful. That might be the most painful loss.
Because I think you guys scored with
not
much time left and I thought the game was over. And then
Brian Van Gorder appeared and had awful play calling. Oh my gosh, that loss still hurts.
Anyway, to the here and now, Will, what else you got on your mind?
The ACC Coastal to me is just
I love it. I love when things like this happen.
I think Duke is my pick, honestly. I do think Duke's my pick right now. Mike Elko.
Yeah, right now, Duke and North Carolina are 1-0. So they are the two teams. And Miami is yet to play. For as bad as Miami's been, they have yet to play a conference game.
I was really getting excited. I was on the row the boat team, and then what happened today is disappointing.
This was hilarious. This was just last night, I think. All these shows run together for me, but I believe this was just last night. I made some kind of comment about Minnesota, and I must have had 4 or 5 people in the chat just all over me that Minnesota's going undefeated. They're going undefeated.
I wanted them to, but
all I simply said is it's possible, but it's not going to happen. They are not that good. They're not going undefeated. And these people were in my face about Minnesota going undefeated. No.
I didn't think they were going to be Penn State, but I think they could have won 11-1. But no, definitely not going 11-1 now.
Next week in the ACC Coastal, Pitt's hosting Virginia Tech. Duke goes to Georgia Tech. Duke and Georgia Tech playing for first place in the Coastal next week. North Carolina at Miami. Okay, those are the big games.
Those are some fun games.
Yeah.
I mean, Are any of them on Thursday?
No. Do we have a fun Thursday lineup this week? Let's see. What's our Thursday lineup? Oh, we've got a Wednesday game because of the hurricane. SMU and UCF. And then we've got no Thursday games. What is college football doing? Like 1 week there's like 4 Thursday games. The next week there's none. Like, why would there not consistently be Thursday games? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either, Mark.
On Friday, we've got Nebraska-Rutgers, Houston-Memphis, Colorado State-Nevada, and UNLV-San Jose State.
Nebraska could make a bowl. I feel like. I don't know.
Let's see.
It would be a good story.
They lost 2 games out of conference, so they've got to go. They've got to go 5-4 in the Big Ten.
Well, they aren't beating Michigan.
I don't see that.
But I think I can seriously see a scenario where they can win some of those games.
5-4 in the Big Ten. They're 4, so they're 1-1 right now. They've got to go 4-3 the rest of the way. They've already played the worst team.
Well, they're playing Rutgers on Friday.
Yeah, that's a toss-up.
They can maybe win Purdue, Illinois. Maybe they could win one of those games.
Maybe.
Minnesota, probably not, but they didn't look good today.
Yeah,
they can beat Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin hasn't looked great.
We could.
And then maybe Iowa. Maybe they can score against Iowa because their offense is good. It's just their defense that's bad.
I think that Northwestern might be the worst team in the Big Ten, and they already lost to them.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
Right. Well.
Another fun stress-free week of college football.
Yeah.
Next week, we should beat BYU. We should, but
Ooh.
I mean.
Yeah, I like that matchup. Who's got that game?
I think it's a night NBC game, 7:30. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's an NBC Peacock game.
NBC and Peacock, right?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, very cool. I like that matchup.
I think we should win by I think 2 scores. I think we should win by 2 scores, but I'm not going to bet on it. I'm never going to bet on my team.
Just hope that you win the game. Just win by 1 point.
All right, Mark.
You could have lost to Cal. You lost to Marshall.
Well, I feel like the team's improving every week. Oh, Arizona State scored against USC. Could be interesting.
We truly do have 25 or 30 teams in the country that are that close.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know. My hope is that we can be a top 10 team by the end of the year, but 1 game at a time.
Yeah. Beat BYU by a point.
All right.
Right there. Hey, Will.
All right. Well, have a great night, Mark, and hopefully we can have a fun time seeing some of these callers.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
All right. Voice of College Football, please call the show, and we will keep moving along here. Oh, I know what we're going to talk about next. Michael Hoag's on the line. Michael, what's going on?
Not much. I told everybody that it's going to happen this morning, during a couple of streams and stuff that Purdue was going to happen. Sorry about that. But, Will, get real. Notre Dame not winning next week. BYU is going to bounce back after loss from a couple weeks ago to beat in Vegas and stuff. I tell you this, and roll, Mark.
Yes.
Devin, I can't think of his name. I think off the top of my head. It's going to be a beast. If Purdue keeps their running game going, and if O'Connell can get going also, watch out for Purdue because they're going to be lethal the rest of the season, especially the running game.
Yeah, they ran the ball today. That was the key to the game.
Mockabee was his name. Yeah, it was. And the tidbit I was holding back last night was O'Connell and Abraham. I heard something about Abraham might not play today, and I knew O'Connell was going to play. So that was the tidbit I was holding back last night.
I gotcha. So Michael, let me ask you this off the subject of football. You get a lot of pop. I don't know if it's your phone line, but you get it. We don't have a phone line, of course, but whatever it is, whatever kind of mic you're using or whatever it is, it's just it cuts in and out a lot, and I think it's difficult for the viewers to hear you.
It's my earbud, probably. I'm using an earbud with microphone.
Okay.
So. Yeah, but I was really impressed and stuff like that.
If there's anything you can do about that, I don't want to cut our conversation short because of that, but it doesn't do much good.
All right, I
when
can
you
leave
hear what you're
and
saying.
try to do it with my phone and stuff like that, but I'm having trouble with the channel I'm on right now. I'm gonna have to use one of my other channels for the stream like that, so I can leave and come back in a few minutes and stuff like that. See if that'll be any better.
All right, let's give it a shot, Michael.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for calling. Appreciate
Yep,
that.
see you.
Let's keep moving. Yeah, Purdue over Minnesota. I tell you, that Purdue defensive backfield, those guys are studs. Trice is a really good player. All right, Joey. Sorry about the Mountains tonight.
Well, you know what? They played pretty bad. That's for sure. Texas run all over them, threw all over them. Defense couldn't stop a ball. Defense couldn't stop the runs, couldn't stop the pass. You remember? Did you watch the game last night between Washington and UCLA?
Yes.
And then did you? I don't know if you had the same feeling I did, but it looked like Washington's defensive line was just getting pushed around all over the place by UCLA. That like they wasn't even trying. That's about how West Virginia looked today at Texas. I mean, it was just didn't look like they was even trying to me. Defense getting pushed around, offensive line got pushed around, and once again, receivers can't catch a ball. So, but JT Daniels wasn't on cue either. That's not really why I come on. I came on to say still 100% with my upset picks, my locks of the week. Remember who I told you would be the upset today? Wake Forest to beat Florida State.
What I want you to do, Joey, is I want you to keep track of these. This is what we should start doing, Joey. You should call sometime during the week when you've made your upset picks, and we'll keep track of them starting next week. Because I asked you last time you called, and I said, do you keep record of your upset picks? And you said no.
Well, they're on video. They're on video, but
you got them on video.
I'm not keeping record. So yeah, my predictions are on video on GBD. So yeah.
So West Virginia and 9.5 was not one of your predictions. I thought you said that West Virginia was going to cover the spread.
Well, that was it. I'm not talking about all predictions. I'm talking about locks of the week for upsets. My upset lock of the week. Okay, my upset lock of the week. I never said West Virginia was going to upset Texas.
I got you.
I said I didn't take like that line.
I got you.
Not just one. Sometimes I'll pick two, but most times one.
Okay. Wake and anybody else?
No, I just had Wake this week. There was a couple of games I was looking at. I'm glad I didn't pick, like the Kansas game. I thought Iowa State could upset them, but I wasn't confident, so I didn't pick it. Now next week I will say this: TCU will beat Kansas next week. There's no upset there. TCU should be favored, and TCU should win that game, I believe.
Where are they playing?
At Kansas.
Yeah, I don't know what the spread on that game is going to be. Considering what TCU did to Oklahoma, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the favorite.
Yeah, I mean they looked phenomenal today. I mean, I watched that game and TCU looked like a really good team.
I don't know why Wake Forest was a 6.5 point underdog. Myself, I didn't even.
Yeah, I don't either. I know everybody was picking Florida State and saying, well, the weather is going to hold everything back. And I said, there's not going to be any weather. That thing will be gone by the time that game's played. It'll be 80 degrees and sunny. And sure enough, it was, nothing slowed down Wake Forest.
The one, and I think this is the only double-digit upset of the day was, and I could see this one coming. I didn't pick it. I certainly, again, I didn't even think, like the Wake game, I didn't even think twice about taking Purdue and 12 points against Minnesota.
Yeah, you and I talked about that game last night. Yeah, you and I talked about that game last night, and I said, and you said then Purdue could upset Minnesota, and I said, yeah, but I don't see them doing it. So, I said, that's the game I'm leaving alone. I'm not even touching that game. With or without the points, I wouldn't have touched it. And then, and that's wise because, Purdue's a little bit better than they've looked. So, all right, Mark. I guess that's all I wanted to say. Is we looked really bad, but hey, what can you do? I mean, Texas was on a mission. It looks like their players only meeting, done some good because they were fired up, hitting on all cylinders.
Well, Joey, I will be looking forward to your upset lock of week 5 since you were, no, this was week 5. So week 6. So you're 5-0, right?
Actually, I think I'm probably closer to 8-0. I was a couple of times I did pick 2.
Okay.
So I'll go back and watch videos and get what I picked.
I'd like to see the list. I want to see the list of the games. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'll go back and get that. So, all right, Mark. We will talk at you later. Great show. I'll stay tuned in.
I appreciate it, man.
Right.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Bye. Joey Foster is 8-0 in his upset locks of the week. There you go. We got Alabama fan Hunter on the line. Hunter, what's going on?
How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, we had some good news and some bad news today. Good news is my prediction of Alabama winning by more than 2 touchdowns was correct. Bad news is my NC State picked the upset to pull the upset didn't pan out, and Florida State lost. So some good and some bad.
Yeah, I took Arkansas on 17 points. And certainly when the game was 28-23 in the fourth quarter, I thought I was in good shape, but they caved in after that.
And that's all credit to Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he did a great job of those cutbacks and making the line move towards him, and then making that cutback when he did. If you watch those 2 plays and you go and you rewatch those plays, that's all him, and that's nothing special to Alabama's offensive line. That's him being a really good football player.
Yeah, he sure is. I heard a comparison between he and Alvin Kamara, and I'll take that one. Pass receiver and body size, frame, the way he runs. Yeah, I'll take that comparison. I get that.
We shot ourselves in the foot in some area. They should have never been up by. They should have scored that many points against us. But the mistake and on the punt, and hopefully Bryce is okay. But I will say, I heard you talk about Jalen Milroe earlier. I don't think it's not that he doesn't have arm capability. I just think his first instincts are to run.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that. I don't think Nick Saban would recruit and sign a player that can't throw the ball. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm saying you're saying that he's just more of a runner than he is a passer.
Yep.
Yeah. But I've seen him make some passes down the field a couple times that look really sharp. So if he needs to go and start next week, I'm very confident in Jalen Milroe. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be the starter next year. And but hopefully we get Bryce back. I hope everything's all right. And Nick Saban sounded optimistic in his press conference. So we'll just see how day-to-day goes on next week. And I think we'll find out more about that situation on Monday when Nick Saban has his press conference. Did you see the interview of Nick Saban that girl gave Nick Saban right after the game? And she instantly regretted that? Well,
he has certainly done that a number of times. I can recall one time when he was asked at the beginning of the season about the Tua Jalen Hurts competition, and that went viral because he just ripped into whomever it was, the sideline reporter, about, we're doing this, we're doing that, we've got a game to play, why is everybody just talk about this? And so then I did not hear the question. I was flipping around. I caught his answer, and I just assumed he was asked about Bryce Young's status. And I get it, where football coaches get annoyed with, they just won a football game, and they want to discuss what their team just accomplished, and they have to answer questions about people that didn't play. I get that. But then I also get her doing her job in asking about Bryce Young. He's one of the most famous players in the country and the Heisman Trophy winner.
That would have been my second question. I wouldn't have started off with that question. I would have started off with the, how do you feel about your team,
Sure.
battling through, and then go to that question. I think Nick Saban he wants his players to get recognition when they do things that are positive, and I think he's really big on that. And a lot of people don't think he is, but he really is. He's just quick to move on to the next game in terms of preparation.
Sure, but I also think that he tends to either suppress his team's accomplishments or lift them up if they're being criticized. So if they're winning games and they're winning close like they did last year, where they weren't impressive to most people against Auburn and LSU, and then he's being asked left and right about what's wrong with this, what's wrong with that, what's wrong with this, then he tends to say, hey, we're winning games and we're winning in the SEC and we just played a good team. And he tends to lift his team up when they're being criticized, and when they're being praised and they're rolling over everyone, he tends to bring them down.
Yeah, I think he's trying to do a balancing act of not letting the right poison get to them, like he says. And but one other thing that I want to get to that Will said, I really like Will, but Will's got that whole Nebraska thing, his hope of them making a bowl game all jacked up. Nebraska they're just a dumpster fire right now. And I don't see them making a bowl game. I really don't. And I wish that Nebraska was that good, but they're just not.
No, they've got to win too many games against their schedule, and their schedule's way too good.
And I hope that it's going to be an interesting game, BYU versus Notre Dame. That's going to be an interesting game. I think I would pick Notre Dame to win, but I think BYU can make it interesting.
Oh, I think it's going to be razor close. I think Baylor's a really good team, and BYU beat them. They did not play well at Oregon. And other than that, I think Notre Dame's certainly a more talented team and a deeper team with more NFL players. But BYU has a better quarterback right now.
Well, how much of the Alabama game did you watch?
I watched until it got to be 21-0. And then I was like, okay, I'm out. And then when I saw 28-14, I got back into it. But I wasn't intently watching it.
Okay. Well, if you would have watched the whole game, I would have been more interested in your comments about some of the things that we did that went wrong that you think we need to improve on going forward. But I think every game, some things are good. They're bad at the moment, but are good later on. That happens, so the players can learn from it. For example, the special teams mistake. It's a bad thing they had the mistake at the moment, but it's a good thing for them to build on and for that coaching staff to really, really make sure to happen in a game where when the game's on the line, really. And shout out to Arkansas, though. I really like Sam Pittman. I think he's got that program going in the right direction, and their players played hard, and so I got a lot of respect for Sam Pittman. I really do. And he's one of those guys like who you were talking about earlier, how you root for Harsin. I root for Sam Pittman as just as a person.
Well, I think that's a completely different deal. The reason you're rooting for Sam Pittman is because you like him as a person.
Well, no, what I'm saying, I like that what he's able to do. But I don't know anything about him as a person, but I'm saying I like how he's changed the culture.
Yeah.
like he has.
I have no reason to root for Brian Harsin. I just think it would be interesting if, because of all the ridicule he's taken, that he turned it around. That's the only reason I just think it would be funny.
If it was at a different program, I'd completely agree. But if it's at Auburn, I hope they lose every game and
Sure.
doesn't matter, it'd be fine with me if Auburn didn't win the game. It wouldn't bother me at all.
That's like Stetson Bennett. I've got no reason to root for Stetson Bennett, but because he's taken way too much criticism, I started rooting for Stetson Bennett.
Talking about stories. You could have never in a million years could have wrote the story of Tua and Jalen Hurts. That is one of the. I know it's not just because I'm an Alabama fan. I know that I've heard from several other fan bases that say that's one of the best stories in college football history about the history between those two guys. That was just crazy thing to witness, and I like Jalen Hurts now even more that he, when he transferred, because he still understood that he didn't get to where he was at, because if it wasn't for Alabama, he wouldn't have got to where he's at today. And you see him all the time, like in pregame for the Eagles. He'll be wearing like Alabama shirts or Oklahoma gloves or something like that. So it's really cool.
Hunter, hello. Hello, Hunter. Still with us? Hunter. I think we lost him. One more time, Hunter. You with us? No. All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football to our next call. But first, we've got to acknowledge this super chat coming in from King Vegeta, who has told us countless times. So we'll take it one more time, because now he's actually got a win, a valid win on the resume for Chip Kelly and company. UCLA will go 11-1 and play in the Rose Bowl. They completely outplayed Washington for 3 quarters last night. I was impressed. They let it loose in the 4th quarter and almost blew the game, but still 40-32, big win for UCLA. Welcome to the college football season, UCLA. You were the last team to have played anybody with a pulse. So thank you for joining the season here, UCLA. I also want to remind everyone, when Hunter brings up being interested in my analysis of Alabama, Arkansas, had I watched the entire game, it makes me think, man, if we got to the point on here where we had enough subscribers and viewers, you know what I would do all day Saturday or Sunday and Monday, basically, I would do this, and then I would kick it into preview mode, is I would just watch, I would zip through a game, and then I would give my analysis, and I would just post video after video. Like I'd go Alabama, Arkansas. I'm going to watch it in like an hour, and then post a video. Then I'd watch whoever, NC State and Clemson, to give my analysis. But unfortunately, we are not at the stage that we can do that because we just don't have enough people at this point. Hopefully we get to that point. We hope to get to that point. All right, we got Jacob on the line. Jacob, what's going on? Jacob's gone. Next up, we got Holden. Holden, what's going on?
Mark, how you doing?
I am doing just fine.
Oh,
mind.
It's a week of college football. 10 top 25 teams lost so far, and USC looks like they are not opposed to making it 11.
I am rooting for Arizona State, not because I've got anything against USC, but I love upsets.
Yeah, it's a year of chaos so far. I gotta ask you, Mark, if you had to pick the top 5 teams right now, not in even any order, what would you say?
Who are the 5 best teams in the country?
Who are the 5 best playing teams right now?
It's difficult for me to separate the first 3. I just know that the 3 best teams in the country are Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. Like I have little doubt about that right this second, that those 3 teams are better than everybody else. So I'm selecting 2 teams out of everybody else. And that's the difficult thing, because I believe that there's like 20 teams that we could talk about. And so I think 4 and 5, I'm going to go with Clemson and I'm going to go with Clemson and are you going to give me one more slot? Can I throw 2 more at you?
Yeah, if you want to put 2 more in there, you can do that.
Tennessee and Oklahoma State.
Yeah. I mean, my question is what, like, you have Georgia in that top 3, but what Georgia team are you getting? These past 2 weeks, you get that Georgia team. They're not going to compete with any of those other teams.
I'm getting the Georgia team that would show up for a playoff game.
So you think that it's just an overlooking both the last 2 weeks for the most part?
I think we've heard enough from coaches and players through the years to know that they can't get up to fever pitch every week. Do I think that they prepared this week? Do I think that they worked hard? Do I think that they watched film with intent? Certainly the coaches want to get the team ready to play. And did they come out there and do their best? Yeah. Do I think that they were like laser focused, like ready to run through a brick wall? Probably not. But maybe they were. And maybe they're just not able to replace these NFL players at quite the level that maybe we thought after 2 or 3 weeks.
And then Alabama, obviously a great game this week.
Yeah.
But like what happened to their offense against Texas, I guess would be my question. It's how good is this Texas team? Well, they lost to Texas Tech, so
well, how many times could we take any national champion and not point to 2 or 3 games throughout the season in which they didn't look anywhere close to a national championship team?
I would say, yeah, that happens a lot. My bigger point is just this year. I feel like there is like I feel like the last 5 years we've had a pretty good idea and been almost certain of the top 2 to 3 teams who are going to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
And while I think Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State are probably, especially like if you ask me, Ohio State is the team I'm most sure of right now that's going to make the playoffs. But like Alabama, they have to play through Ole Miss, and they have that game at Tennessee this year. Georgia has to play through Tennessee to make their championship game. And I just I can't say that I have supreme confidence they can do that.
I get it. I actually forgot about that team up north. I would put them ahead of Oklahoma State. So I'd go Clemson 4, Michigan 5, Oklahoma State 6.
Now I want to try something a little bit different maybe. If I had to ask you, like, go by conference, what 2 teams you think are in the championship game right as of now? So I guess we can start like Pac-12. What 2 teams? That would just, I guess, be the best 2 teams. They have no divisions anymore.
The 2 best teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I guess you can't look at schedule. So just the 2 best teams.
Utah. And wow. Oregon and USC are an interesting comparison. I'm going to go with Oregon.
And then the Big 12?
I still believe we saw the 2 best teams play today in a rematch of last year's championship game, Oklahoma State and Baylor.
The Big 10, where you have to decide which Big 10 West team you think is.
Yeah. Ohio State and
does it matter?
Well, it doesn't matter, but I still want to figure out who is the best team in the Big 10 Western Division. I think the 2 best probably played today. And man, is Purdue the best team in the Big 10 West? I think that all comes down to matchups. Depends on who's playing whom, but when you throw it all together, I'm going to go with Purdue.
Just a quick note, just to You got to think any conference that needed to eliminate divisions. The Big Ten is the one right now. It looks like, and
Sure.
not a single team even going to be undefeated in conference play in the Big Ten West. All of them have already lost once.
Yeah, the 3 best teams are in the same division.
Yep.
At least the 3. Shoot, maybe Maryland could go over there and win the West.
All right, and then the SEC. I assume I know your guess, but
Yeah, I do think Kentucky's got a puncher's chance. They certainly couldn't do what they did against Ole Miss and turn the ball over, and their field goal unit's an issue, like a serious issue. But they've got a chance, and I think Tennessee has a chance against Georgia, and Alabama is so much better than everybody else, I believe, because I thought Arkansas was the one team that could possibly give them a good run in that division. So yeah, Bama and Georgia.
and then Coastal Chaos.
Yeah. Clemson and much like the Big Ten, the best teams in the ACC are all clumped in the same division. I do think it's North Carolina.
Wow. I guess I just don't. I think almost all of those teams could make it.
Well, sure. I
Realistically.
do too. I
Like the
agree.
Big
But you
Ten,
asked me to-
like the ACC Coastal might be the biggest nightmare division in like college football history. Like obviously I don't know the history, but just thinking about it,
Sure.
I don't know, other than maybe Virginia. I'm not sure there's a team there that has proved that they need to be counted out yet. And Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
Both
you
of
could
them.
have a glut of 5-3 and 4-4 teams.
And I would take 5 ACC Atlantic teams over all of them.
Sure. I would too.
That's just craziness. Now I'm a Wake fan, so that was a big win for us today. I don't.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about it just a few minutes ago. I don't understand how the spread was what it was, but I guess when you get sort of the media, they want Florida State to be good in a sense, and I guess somehow that got its way into Vegas. Usually, I feel like they managed to just go with the stats and things like that.
Yeah.
But this week it just felt like maybe Florida State would still be a slight favorite in my head at home in that game, but almost a full touchdown just feels crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, the score is somewhat deceptive because from after the first 2 possessions when Wake was down 7-0,
Mm-hmm.
so Florida State got the ball back, and then they got stopped like a 3-and-out, or they just ended up having to punt to Wake. All the way from that time to good way through the third quarter, Wake dominated FSU every drive, every play, basically. Wake could run the ball over Florida State at will. They could pass the ball at will, and Florida State's offense could gain some yards, but generally stalled out around midfield almost every possession for most of the game.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing there, but you're also eliminating a good portion of the game in which we could say Florida State dominated Wake.
I don't know if I would say that at the beginning of the game for the first 2 possessions, yes, Florida State dominated Wake. Both possessions, Wake goes 3-and-out, and Florida State just marches down the field and scored on the very first possession. The end of the game, it didn't feel like to me that Wake was getting dominated by Florida State. Coach Clausen has this thing where he just turns to really conservative play calling when Wake is up by 2 or 3 scores. He's done it the past 2 years against North Carolina. And he did it last year against North Carolina. It came back to bite us. And then he did it today, and it almost came back to bite us. And I don't know. It's just when Wake gets up by 3 scores and the game is in the fourth quarter or near it, he runs the ball the first 2 downs basically without fail. And the defenses seem to know that's coming just about every time. So I don't know, like, Wake's defense certainly got gassed, but Wake's offense just sort of it wasn't that they weren't playing well, it's just they were calling the wrong plays to try to extend the lead because Wake's coaching staff just has a philosophy prioritizes running the clock as opposed to just piling up more points.
Well, I'm looking at a 7-drive stretch, offense and defense, where Florida State scored 2 touchdowns drove the length of the field and missed a field goal. So they also missed 2 field goals. Keep that in mind. And that Wake kicked 1 field goal and punted twice.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at what you're looking at. So those drives, Wake goes for a run and then 2 straight sacks, and that stalls out the first drive there.
Yeah.
The second drive is a run for no yards, and then let's see, 2 passes for a first down, and then a run, and then a sack. So it was sort of their defensive line definitely started to step up at that time, but also just the running the ball when it seemed much like the Clemson game, they really couldn't stop Wake's receivers down the field. But Wake chooses to run the ball to sort of run the clock out, and then when Wake has to go down and score, they manage to do it on that field goal drive that basically ends the game.
Well, I got to tell you, when I went back and looked at the stats and saw that Sam Hartman only threw for 234 yards, I was a bit surprised because I had this game on just about the entire time, but I'm always trying to watch 3 or 4 games at the same time, and Wake's receivers just manhandled, just abused Florida State secondary.
Yeah, the stats are deceiving. I would say Hartman probably had the best game of his career last week against Clemson.
Yeah.
But this week is not. This week's one of his better games he's played too. He looked completely in control of the offense, other than a few times. I think he got sacked 4 times today. I would say 2, maybe 3 of those were him holding onto the ball too long and not just having the presence to throw it away. 1 or 2 of them, I can't recall exactly, was just sort of him getting hit within 2 seconds of the ball being snapped and not having any time to do anything. But overall, he was, throwing perfect passes basically and running the ball, being able to run the ball down the field or, run out of the pocket and run the ball. And just generally, he had control over the offense basically the entire game. And he didn't make any, bad throws that were mistakes, except for 1 that was a direct pass rated a Florida State defender. But the Wake receiver jumped over the top of the Florida State defender and basically mossed the ball over his head and got the completion right out of the Florida State defender's hands for a first down. And that was pretty late in the game too, so that could have been costly. But Wake's receiver core, I don't know how knowledgeable you are with exactly how good each receiver core is, but if you ask me, Wake probably has a top 5 receiver core in the entire country at this point.
Yeah.
To me, Ohio State is the clear number 1.
Ohio State, USC, Texas, LSU are up there. Michigan. Wake's in the running, sure.
It's just, yeah, it was just one of his really good games, other than just a couple plays. But the stats, the total yards, don't show that necessarily. One stat that was interesting, on third down, he was 7 for 7 for 70 yards or something like that on third downs.
Okay, man. Anything else you got for me?
I think that's about it. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for calling. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. What do you do when you shop Amazon? Please use the link that we provide in the description section of all the videos. You go to any video here at the Voice of College Football, go to the top of the description section. In caps, it says Amazon. Grab that link, please. Put it somewhere where you will remember it and use it when you shop on Amazon. Why add any more dollars to a company that is worth $1.7 trillion? We here, the Voice of College Football, are only worth $1.3 trillion. So we're trying to catch up with Amazon. So please balance the scales, 1.7 trillion, 1.3 trillion. We would like to catch Amazon. Wouldn't that be awesome? So please use the link that we provide. Also, keep in mind that we've got post-game shows all over the place all day on Saturday. And the last 2 that we've got following USC-Arizona State right here at the Voice of College Football, the main channel, and over on the USC channel, we've got Tim, Tony, and Rick all fired up and ready to roll on the USC post-game. And then we've got Ben anchoring our Oregon postgame show here at the Voice of College Football. Tomorrow, top 25 that actually makes sense. We will follow that with conference rankings, if there's anything to go on there, and then who knows what else I'll come up with. All right. We are missing some Purdue talk with Michael. We need to catch up with that. Michael, how you doing?
Hey, Mark, is this any better?
So far.
All right, good. Yeah, I think what you were talking about earlier and stuff like that, I think if they can get the run pass going like they did somewhat today, even though it's the second game in a row they've had more yards rushing than they did throwing, Purdue's going to be a juggernaut. And I got to agree with you. And I said this before the season started. Today was an elimination game for between Minnesota and Purdue. That notwithstanding, though, could it still be Minnesota can bounce back? Yeah. Could Purdue slip? Yeah. But I think if they beat Maryland next week, they don't lose the rest of the season. I think they'll finish 10-2.
Okay.
And the defense was totally awesome today and stuff. So
they could.
Yeah.
They could finish 10-2. I doubt it. But
all
they
right,
could.
you could. I need an answer for. I need to. Oh yeah, that'll thanks.
Who else does Purdue play in the Eastern Division?
They got Maryland and IU left.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if they finished 10-2. They just beat maybe the best team in the division. They've already played Penn State. Sure.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a good game next week and stuff like that. And people saying, yeah, Abraham didn't play today. Even if he played, in my opinion, I still don't think he would have made it different. I think Purdue still would have stuff to run, made Tanner throw the ball more. What you said, and I give you a tip of the cap, because you did say that they had to stop the run, and sure enough, they did stop the run.
Absolutely, they did. I was impressed. I also was impressed with the Purdue secondary. I thought it was exceptional. Those guys, they had 3 interceptions, and those weren't just run-of-the-mill interceptions. You had one interception where defensive lineman, man, we got all sorts of feedback going. Anyway, defensive lineman batted the ball up in the air, and off. You had a safety who ran like midfield all the way sideline and made a crazy catch.
Yep.
Really athletic plays in the secondary.
And then he had the one in the end zone when Minnesota was driving to score before halftime. Yep. All right. I'm getting a little feedback too and stuff like that. I'm going to hop back into the stream and stuff like that, but I just want to give you my take and stuff like that. Hey, Mark, is there any chance you can cheat and do the top 25 that actually makes sense before the end of the stream tonight?
Michael, the reason the top 25 makes sense is because I actually give it thought and I measure resume.
Yeah.
So how could I do that while we're on the stream?
Because you're the guru of college football. You can do multiple things at one time.
Or so you think.
Oh, true. All right, I'm going to get out of here, Mark. Thanks. Take care.
You, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Man, maybe I should change the name of the channel to Guru of College Football. We already have the we already have this trademarked, unfortunately. Maybe we'll have to start another channel. I don't know. All right, Jeffrey's here. Jeffrey, you got a Bama hat on? You giving up on the Hoosiers? Okay.
This is my dad's Alabama hat, and I only got it on because they won and Indiana lost. But all seriousness aside,
that means that you do that every Saturday, basically.
Yeah, Indiana, man, I don't know. They didn't play good. I mean, they were tied. They were down, and then they got it to half, and they were tied. But the second half, man, the offense just died. And I don't understand it either because Connor Bazelak had time to throw. Like, the biggest problem for me with the Indiana offense to begin with is that the offensive line's poor, and they don't protect Bazelak at all. But in this game, I felt they did a better job of protecting him. But as the game wore on, Bazelak's throws were off, and obviously Nebraska scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. But this was a really bad missed opportunity for Indiana because looking at the rest of their schedule, if you can't beat Nebraska, that was 1-3 on the road, who else are you going to beat? I mean, Rutgers maybe, but Purdue's better. You've been talking about Purdue all night, how they can maybe win the West. You're not beating Maryland because Maryland's really good, and Michigan State's kind of playing bad. But, I mean, who are you going to beat? This was a winnable game, and I kind of roasted Nebraska the other night. But, again, Indiana should have probably, if they wanted to say that they were a good team, they should have won tonight.
Well, let's look at the schedule. I was just looking at the stats. Yeah, Basilak went to 22 of 44. And the rushing attack outside of the sacks wasn't too bad. About 18 carries for 87 yards out of Sean Shivers and the rest of these guys. So Michigan at home, Maryland at home, Rutgers on the road, Penn State, at Ohio State, at Michigan State, Purdue. Yeah, who would have thought that maybe Michigan State is playing worse than any team left on the schedule?
Yeah.
That's
why a lot of people are off the Washington train, obviously, because Michigan State's not playing that well. And I don't know why they're not. I mean, I know that it's hard to replicate, last year's results when you got basically all new players. But I will say that, like, their two running backs, when they were at their previous schools, were talented. Jalen Berger and Jarrett Broussard. And Peyton Thorne was really good last year. I mean, he wasn't like in Heisman conversations, but he was in, just good talks with.
He's not their problem.
The country, and they look terrible. I mean, obviously, do I think they're worse than Indiana? No, but I mean, like you said, that could definitely be Indiana's best chance to win another game this season, potentially the way they're playing. Rutgers too, obviously. But I mean, I don't know if you watched the Nebraska game too much. You got so many other games to watch, but I mean, if you did watch any of it, again, I don't understand what happened because Indiana's better than what they played tonight. I mean, they beat Illinois. I know it was week 1, and you see what Illinois is doing. I mean, just to be completely honest, I mean, I went, I think, 6-2. I did 8 preview and prediction videos throughout the week on my channel, and I think I went 6-2. I don't know what the Arizona score is. I picked Arizona to win, but besides that, the only teams I picked wrong were Indiana, and I picked Tulane wrong because I picked Houston to win on Friday night. But I picked Boise State to win, and that one looked scary at first, but they won. And then I picked Kansas to beat I forgot they play. I'm so tired right now. But I picked Iowa State, yes. Kansas, I picked them. And then I'm trying to go through all my teams that I picked, but because I can't remember because I'm exhausted. I got to go to church tomorrow again. I'm just so tired. But I picked Maryland, and that was a good pick.
Jeffrey, what are you exhausted from? What were you on, digging the ditch today or something? What are you exhausted from?
I had to go shopping. I had to listen to my dad talk about how Alabama, oh, my gosh, are they going to lose? I'm like, it's 28-23. And he's like, Bryce Young. It was so funny speaking about Bryce Young. I mean, I know he got hurt. And you have how many times they show the replay of that injury? Again, I'm not saying when anybody gets hurt, I hate it. But like when Penix went down for Indiana all those times, they'd show it like once or twice. They showed Bryce Young getting hurt like 25 times. I'm like, man. I mean, again, it sucks, but it's like when it's a big player like Bryce Young is. I mean, they showed that over and over and over again. And it was just like my dad was like, what is it? Is he going to be out for the season? Has he got like a torn shoulder? I'm like, I don't think so. I mean, it depends. I mean, I had no idea. It just depended on the severity of it. But, I mean, obviously it doesn't seem like it's going to be that bad. But, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of rambling again. But it was crazy because of the fact that Alabama looked like for a second, even though I told my dad, I was like, I think Alabama's going to be fine. But they definitely turned it around like the other guy you guys were talking about earlier, Jahmyr Gibbs, man. He just turned it on. And, again, that's why Georgia Tech is missing him severely. But, hey, they beat Pitt. So, like you guys were saying, the Coastal is a crazy, crazy game. And, yes, I am talking about Indiana. Mike Fort, I mean, no one else does it. They stink. I'm just waiting for basketball season. I mean, they might be good in basketball, but we'll see. And I was going to tell you, too, that the other night when that guy said that this kid deserves half the money, man, you don't have to do that, man. You don't have to. I mean, you deserve all the money.
Absolutely, we are. We're going to do that. That was his comment that was connected to his super chat. So of course I'm going to honor that. So you just let me know where to send that.
Yeah, my dad set up the other day the Cash App or whatever, and it's it's just only Talk Sports. It's the name of my channel. The HTTPS / the $ thing. Only
you know what,
Talk
Jeffrey?
Sports.
I'm old. I'm not going to remember that. That's not going to stay in my mind for 5 seconds. So if you just want to hit me up on, I don't know if you get a Twitter or just send an email to me at MarkRogersTV@gmail, and you can put it there.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but because again, my technology skills are poor. But
you're a young guy, Jeffrey. Your technology skills are poor.
Yeah, I really am. I mean,
Jeffrey, you're an amazing guy. We all can see that. You're an amazing guy. I don't know how old you are. I shouldn't even try to guess.
18, like I said the other night. Yeah, someone thought I was 14.
Okay, so you're 18. You're an amazing guy. The two things I will tell you, though, is I'm surprised being an 18-year-old, you're not technologically savvy. And number two, you're not allowed to be tired at your age. You're not supposed to be tired until you're at least like 40.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not too tired or I wouldn't be up at all. But you know what I'm saying? It's just
I'm a few years older than you, and I never admit to being tired.
So you're saying that I got to go over to your Gmail or whatever, and then type it in or whatever.
Just send me an email.
Yeah, I'll have my dad tomorrow do that because he's he'll help me out with that because I mean I'm not good at. The other thing I was going to ask you real quick, and I'll ask you a couple more football questions. I'll get out of here, but I don't know if it's legal to do this because again I don't know how to do anything. But my dad put on my YouTube channel banner the link to the Cash App or whatever. So actually, you can technically just hit it on there. Are you allowed to do that? Is you allowed to put on your YouTube banner? Because I saw a lot of conflicting reports on the internet that you had, like you do in your video description, you have it in your thing for the Cash App or whatever, Venmo and stuff. And my dad put it on my banner art. And to actually, if you want to just instead of having to have an email, you can just do it on my channel. But it has it on there. So only Talk Sports. And it has the donate Cash App or whatever on there. And just you hit it and it'll have it on there. So actually, just do that.
So I
mean, again, you don't even have to because I want you.
Well, I do have to for two reasons. Number one, whoever donated that, they said that they wanted half of it to go to you, and number two, I've already told you that I will send it to you. So I'm a man of my word, so I will send it to you. But I got to tell you, Jeffrey, as soon as we get done with these call-in shows, and as soon as I get done with the caller, whatever was said, it's gone. I don't even know if I'll be able to find your channel.
I mean, if you can't do it, then I'll just have to talk, like I said, with my dad and do the Gmail because I don't know how to do none of that stuff. But if you could just remember, my channel is only Talk Sports is right there. But again, you are fantastic, man. You deserve all the money you get because all I know is I see a lot of garbage YouTubers out there that are getting thousands of dollars on their live streams, and you should get a lot more than you do. And I mean, I'd donate if I could, but I don't have any money right now. I gotta start earning some. I mean, mom's like, you gotta go get a job. And I'm like, I'm just trying to make some videos. I just got done with high school.
That's right.
I'm gonna do stuff.
Well, when we can get you up to 1,000 subscribers, you'll be able to start making money at this. So how about that? That'll be great.
Yeah, I got a long way to go. I think I'm at 57 right now.
Oh, we'll get you to 1,000.
How do you only have 37.5, man? You should have I saw a comment one time like 4 months ago said you should have like 500,000. You should, man, or 1 million. I mean, there's so many, like you said one time on one of your shows, you said that there are a lot of stuff in this world that are garbage that have, especially on YouTube, that have millions of subs and all this, and they're making tons of money. All the Twitter and Instagram pictures, I know why they're famous because of what they do, and I'm not even gonna get into that junk. But people like you are what should do well on YouTube because I don't even like none of that stuff. The only stuff I'm sub to are smaller channels and sports channels because I like it, and this is what should be doing good on this platform. Everybody in the chat, I'm not even reading it because I know people are probably thinking I'm insane talking about this right now. But again, you should have more subs than you do. There is
I
no doubt in
appreciate
my
that, sir.
mind.
That's very nice of you. And there's a lot of, as you're starting to find out, there's a lot of gimmicks to YouTube and a lot of things you got to figure out. So, you're going to find this out when you produce videos. You're going to say, I thought this video was really good, and it'll bomb. And then the next video, you'll think you just threw it together and it was no good, and it may take off. There's a lot of timing and thumbnails and the title and all these things go into it. And there's a lot of things I need to address here that will make this more popular. We will get there. But I appreciate your words. That's very nice.
Yeah, thank you. You're fantastic. But it's like with me on my channel, it's so confusing because I try to do a lot of games that a lot of people don't do. So what I do is I search up a game, and if it has 5-10 videos on it, even if you do one, I'm not going to do it, obviously, because I'm going to be buried. So I'm doing Colorado, Arizona, and Houston, Tulane. Those are the games that I do to try to get views. And it's the one game that I thought would suck was the Illinois-Wisconsin game. I did that one. Oh, that was the other game. I picked Wisconsin. That's the game I got wrong too. I picked Wisconsin. I think I did 3 wrong. So I went 5-3. I should have picked Illinois. This dude told me in the comment section I should have picked Illinois, man. And he was right because Wisconsin played terrible. But that video was so far is the biggest video on my channel. I got 400 views on it. And my Colorado, Arizona, I thought would do well because no one did. It only had 14. So it was okay. So again, you are right. YouTube is really weird because you were talking about the other night that one of your videos had 300 views on it. It was that Arkansas conversation.
Yeah.
And then your top 25 actually makes sense. Obviously gets more because more people are interested in rankings. I don't know why. I mean, they're like you said, they're all flawed anyway. And I like them, but it's just weird. Again, it's very confusing to know what's going to do well and what's not going to do well. But again, I'll have my dad try to do the email, and again, if you can remember, Only Talk Sports, and it's right there. But the last thing I'll ask so I can get out of here is another football question. What's wrong with Oklahoma besides Dylan Gabriel leaving the game? What is wrong with Oklahoma? I did not watch any of the game. I just saw the score. What's wrong with Oklahoma?
I did not see any of the game either, but considering that I did not consider TCU to be a good football team coming into this season, and of course they didn't play anybody as of today. The toughest team that they probably played, well, they played SMU last week. Who's SMU? They're probably a top 50 team in the country, and they beat them by 1 score. They played Colorado. That doesn't count for much. So I didn't know what to expect at TCU, and they still had Max Duggan at quarterback, who's been there forever. And I thought TCU was going to be about a 5-win team coming into this season. And for them to take Oklahoma out with 55 points, and I didn't see any of this game, but Oklahoma has just been shredded defensively the last 2 weeks. And of course, their coach is a defensive wizard. It's I'm not going to say it's alarming. He's just starting. He's just starting to build a program. He's just gotten there. It's only 5 games now into the season. But it is a little concerning.
I think, like you said about Oklahoma, because Brent Venables being the head coach and everything, you would think the defense would be better. And I know that a lot of the roster is still from last year. And when Lincoln Riley was the coach, the defense was never good. But again, scheme matters too. Kind of like how you could say, well, when Indiana had Kane Womack at defensive coordinator in 2020, their defense was really good. And then when they had Charlton Warren last year, same players, but their defense was awful. And plus the offense was so bad. But now their defense this year is in. But again, you have Brent Venables as head coach. The offense, I figured, would take a step back, obviously, with Lincoln Riley going to USC and taking Caleb Williams and that wide receiver with, I think, Mario Williams or whatever and all that, taking them with him, that their offense take a step back, then Dylan Gabriel and everything, but their defense is terrible. I mean, I saw at the bottom of the screen, it was on ESPN, it was 600 and something yards, 686 yards of total offense TCU had. And TCU, like you said, coming into the season, I didn't think it was going to be any good. So, again, I don't like to ever put anybody on panic alert, but Brent Venables has a lot to figure out at Oklahoma because that's ugly.
And what's really odd as well, Jeffrey, is that the week before these two dumpster fire games for Oklahoma, they held Nebraska to 10 points. Now, we know Nebraska's no good, but Nebraska with Casey Thompson at quarterback, Trey Palmer at wide receiver, with Anthony Grant at running back, they were producing a lot of points in yardage. And Oklahoma completely shut them down. Gave up a touchdown in the first drive, nothing else. 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown didn't matter. It was late in the fourth quarter. And it looked through 3 games like they were playing really good defense. And they have suddenly lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange.
Yeah, and one more thing too. My brain's like fried and tired, and again, I know people are probably waiting on me and want me to get off here. But again, I agree with what you said. That other guy was funny because he was like, you talked about Brian Harsin, you root for him. You're talking about underdogs. I totally get it. That's why I root for Indiana, because they're an underdog, not because they're any good. And that you're talking about like Brian Harsin being on the hot seat and everything already. And, you know, that's why you root for him. Same with Stetson Bennett being a walk-on. You can even say the same thing about Aiden O'Connell at Purdue because he was a walk-on as well. And then that guy was talking about Sam Pittman is like, yes, you can root for Sam Pittman the opposite way about how he was able to turn Arkansas around. But it's not the same kind of root for. Because like you said,
we nothing to do with my viewpoint on Brian Harsin has nothing to do with Brian Harsin.
No.
It has to do with a coach in his position who everybody has written off. He went through this horrendous situation during the offseason, which based on everything that was uncovered, he had nothing to do with. He didn't do anything wrong. But I don't like or dislike Brian Harsin. I just think it's funny that everybody's written him off. And I get it. He lost 5 consecutive games to finish off last season. He's bringing back a team that's going to be an underdog in almost every SEC game they play. And at a school where you're expected to compete for SEC championships. So everything's going against him, and he's the first guy on the hot seat that anybody names. I just think it would be amusing if he came back from that and went on a run and kept his job.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because that's like, again, like I root for Tom Allen because I think he's a great, swell guy, but I don't know who he is. I mean, I don't know Brian Harsin. I don't know Sam Pittman. I don't know any of these quarterbacks. I don't know Tom Allen personally, so when I say I like the guy, I don't know how he is as a person personally. I think he's cool from what I see on TV and all that he does. Just like when I used to watch you before I called in, I thought you were cool, but I never met, I've never met you obviously, but I'm talk to you now on here and I can tell you're great. It's like if I could talk to Tom Allen and have a conversation one-on-one, I'd probably think he's fantastic. But again, I've never had that connection. You only see what you see on TV, and that's why you say you root for a guy because again, you have storylines that you root for with people and with teams and programs, but you don't know them personally. And when you get to know them, even like again, me talking to you personally, you can tell that the people are fantastic like you are, but we don't know any of these people personally. That's why you can just say you root from afar. I agree with that 100%.
The only 2 coaches I got to know to a certain extent, and I'm not claiming to be buddies with them or anything, but to a certain extent because I covered them and like face to face and interviewed them every week and would actually, be invited into their office, ate with them, those sorts of things were Tommy Tuberville when he was at Ole Miss and Jackie Sherrill at Mississippi State. And they were both very nice to me. I did broadcasts from both of their offices during National Signing Day, did on the field interviews with them after games, before games, at practice. They were both very, very nice to me, but don't know them as people. Actually, Jackie Sherrill had invited me to speak to his team the last day of training camp before the season started to talk to them about how to address the media and talk to the media. So both of them were very nice to me, but those are the 2 coaches that I had the most access to.
Yeah, well, I mean, you coaches have to be, you would assume anyway, even though, again, don't know any of them personally, but you would assume that most of them are great, speakers and great people in general because you're having to deal with a whole entire team. You know what I'm saying? You have to deal with a whole entire team and a coaching staff. I mean, if you're just like mean and you're you're terrible. That's why coaches that are usually do get fired, because an incident happens. Like, I'm not saying anything bad about Jimmy Lake at Washington, but you had that incident with him, and then he got fired. And again, I'm not just calling him out. I'm just saying, like, you have to be a good people person, I would assume anyway, to be a coach, because you're having to deal with so many people every day. And if you can't handle the stress of a whole entire team and all these players with all these problems and your coaching staff and the administration, you have to be a good people person to do the job. Because like me, I'm good one-on-one and I'm good like a small crowd, but when there's like a bunch of people, I don't even think I can deal with it, because that's tough. I mean, a coaching job is really, really tough. I will say that for sure.
Jeffrey, before we let you go, do you go by Jeff or Jeffrey?
Jeffrey. My dad goes by Jeff, because he's actually me and him have the same name. I ain't going to give away my last name or anything, but me and him are both senior and junior, so it's kind of funny there.
So, before I let you go, I got one more question for you before we get to these other calls. So you brought up the other night, you were talking about Tom Allen. You were talking about the crazy things that he's done in relating to his players and because of how exuberant he is. And I remember seeing some of these things that, him headbutting the player that had the helmet and, cracking open his head and his head bleeding. And then the other time I remember after a big win, he was doing a lap around the stadium and he was high-fiving. He was falling down half the time because he was trying to jump higher than he could. Now that was back like in 2019, I would guess, when they had their first big run to a bowl game. Has he calmed down at all?
Yeah, you can say that a little bit. I mean, because like you had that time, I can't even remember what game it was. I think it might have been either the Wisconsin game or the Michigan game in 2020. It was one of those games, but you had like the whole entire team coming up behind him and saying, you got to play for this guy. He's the greatest coach in America. And see, that's my problem. And I'm not saying anything bad about any players, because again, I don't know them personally, but players to me sometimes look at their coach better when they're winning, because like when you're not winning, then it's like it's the coach's fault. Because to me, that's what's funny about the sport anyway, of football and basketball, any sport, is that when the team's doing good, it's the coach, or whatever. Or when the team's doing good, it's the players most of the time. But when the team's doing bad, it's the coach. It's like, it kind of can be the players too. I mean, like Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech got fired because the team is no good. And I understand that they just beat Pitt, but Pitt obviously is not great either. And if like Jeff Collins had a better team, maybe done better. So again, it is kind of tough to say with a coach, because of the fact a lot of times that a coach gets fired. Sometimes it's because in the instance that, again, they have a good team and they're not winning enough, like I said the other night. But a lot of times a coach gets fired just because they don't have a good team. And I know it's the coach's responsibility to recruit, but like, again, in the case of Georgia Tech hasn't recruited good in a long time.
All right, Jeffrey, we appreciate you stopping by. Everybody head on over to Jeffrey's channel. Once again, what's the name of your channel?
Only Talk Sports.
Only Talk Sports. No politics, no food, no nothing. Only Talk Sports over on Jeffrey's channel. Jeffrey, enjoy church in the morning, learn something, and we will see you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, man. All right, let's address Shoelace Sooner here before we take our next call. So Shoelace Sooner says, and of course, we appreciate your contribution here. Why is it so hard for people to understand that BV, meaning Brent Venables, took over players recruited by Grinch, Alex Grinch, for that trash speed D? He did not forget how to coach defense. Give him time to recruit guys that match his scheme. Okay, that sounds good, Shoelace, and you've got a valid point. However, if Brent Venables is really as good as we all believe he is as a defensive coordinator, he shouldn't take over a collection of players that performed better last season on defense, and just because he runs a certain scheme, not be able to adjust and adapt and tweak his scheme to perform better than they have. They've given up freaking 55 and 41 points to not so good football teams, okay football teams the last 2 weeks. So if Brent Venables is so rigid that he can only have certain players play in his scheme, then, and I think he's a great football coach, and I think he will prove to be a really good head football coach, but if he can't adjust to that, then he's really not as good as I think he is. Because any football coach, you go to any program, any coach who has proven to be successful. What happens when they first take over a program? That program instantly gets better. Even if they haven't recruited one player, they have yet to get their players on the roster, sign their type of players, their caliber of players. Nick Saban, year 1, year 2, boom, take off. Were those players his recruited players? No. Urban Meyer, Ohio State, boom, take off. Were those his players? No. And on and on and on. Pete Carroll, second year at USC. And I'm not damning Brent Venables to the abyss because he had 2 bad games, but it is kind of alarming just getting just torched the last 2 weeks. Again, not against Ohio State and Alabama's offenses, against TCU and Kansas State. Christopher, what's going on tonight?
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine. What's up?
Well, I was gonna try to get your angle on a couple of things here that you've already kind of talked about. So, if you don't want to spend any more time on it, that's okay too. But, Texas Christian, at least as far as I can tell, have they ran? Was it the spread offense they ran under Patterson? I thought it was kind of like they called it the fraud. What was it? The leapfrog or something like that. Anyway, are they running this? Are they still running the spread?
Pistol.
Well, no. With Patterson, I think it was the spread offense, right?
Well, sure. Everybody runs a spread.
But I mean, the formation they ran.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have they switched? They haven't really. They haven't gone to a different formation, have they?
I don't know. I haven't seen them run one play this year. I haven't seen them at all. I think I saw them a little against Colorado, but I didn't pay attention.
Well, I was under the impression the reason they hired Sonny Dykes was he's a little bit more open in his approach.
Oh yeah, he is. Sure,
so
he is.
I kind of wondered if that wasn't part of the, like you say, it was kind of a shocker, the 55 to 32 or something.
Yeah.
That kind of fits along with what little I know about him, to be honest. I know he was, he wasn't at Southern Methodist very long, but I think part of the reason they hired him, I think, was they're big rivals, Southern Methodist and Texas Christian, and I think Southern Methodist had been mostly, I think they'd done quite well against TCU, and so I think they hired away there.
Won 2 consecutive years against TCU, and as you well know, he's well known for his offensive and passing game prowess.
And well, was he the one that was at Louisiana Tech? I can't really.
Yes.
I thought that's kind of what it was, but
then he went to Cal.
Oh, okay.
He had Jared Goff at Cal.
Yeah. Well, I guess kind of where I'm going with this, I guess, and you mentioned Max Duggan. I wasn't aware that he'd been there. I thought he was only there for a couple of years, but he seems to have kind of a, what do you call it? He can, if he doesn't get it open on the field, he can take it off and run with it, right? He's kind of got that.
Yeah, he's a good runner.
A real good one, I think. Yeah. And so I guess maybe I wasn't quite as surprised as other people were about the way the game went. I didn't expect it. I'm not gonna be so to pretend like I knew the result before it happened. But and I wouldn't have thought that it would have been that way. But kind of knowing a little bit about what they do at TCU, I can kind of see how it could have happened though, because I think once they really get that offense rolling or going, I think they can be a tough team to beat. Really, I think I remember they played Texas. I think it was Texas last year, and I think Texas still beat them. But I don't think it was easy for Texas to beat TCU. I think they had a hard time doing it. I think they won. I think they won fairly easily. But to stop that offense, though, I think you have to really have a pretty good defense going, don't you?
Yeah, I just based on what TCU showed us last year, and they lost their best pass rusher, O'Shawn Mathis, to Nebraska. I did not expect a lot out of TCU this year, so I'm apparently wrong on TCU. I'm also looking for Max Duggan. Had a very difficult time. He had some type of a medical issue that was very serious that he's come back from. That also is very easy to root for him since he's faced a lot of adversity and bounced back from that.
I guess I wasn't really aware of that, but I know that they had recruited a pretty good. I think one of their quarterbacks that they had recruited, I think maybe transferred out of TCU, but I know they had him kind of step in there, and I think it just seems like they've done. They haven't really had any trouble with him, I don't think. And I really don't know what his strengths are. Like I said, I saw him basically just. It didn't look like he really did a pitch or anything. He just kind of took the ball and ran it about 30 or 40 yards. It was almost like they couldn't cover him or something. It's kind of like a missed assignment or something. But and it probably was. But he's got that. I guess it's the duality. I guess that and I guess there's more quarterbacks that kind of have that with them anymore. But I think he can. If he can work on his passing, I think he could probably be a real tough quarterback to stop. And I haven't really followed him that closely, but I know, like I said, when they played Texas last year, it seemed like he was part of the reason why they stayed in the game. I think he could really he knew how to keep the game going on. But I guess the other thing I was going to ask you and this is kind of where I was trying to lead into it, but my opinion is it's not really – I know there used to be that there was only like maybe, Texas and Oklahoma, and then maybe you get like a Texas – Tech or somebody, there was only like 2 or 3 teams that really ever seemed to challenge. And now it seems like they're all about to where they can almost all kind of make a run. I think that's more about what's going on than necessarily Oklahoma losing anything. Am I wrong?
Well, Oklahoma obviously has issues. They just gave up almost 700 yards of total offense and 55 points. Mm-hmm. And it remains to be seen how good TCU is. And they gave up 41 points and 500 plus yards to a Kansas State team that only scored 10 points the previous week to Tulane. So those are, I'm not going to build a season-long narrative over 2 results, but still that's pretty alarming for Oklahoma the last 2 weeks. Yes, they've lost their first 2 games in conference, and they've apparently, now we'll see how it plays out, but based on projections, not even played the best teams in the conference yet.
Right. Well, I guess kind of what I was trying to tell you, and I'm sorry if I don't say it the way I should, but what I do, and I'll do it again this week, I do the very best I can. I honestly, be all completely fair, I don't know how close my rankings are to the truth. All I know is I'm doing what I think is the right thing. And if I remember correctly, the top conference, I think, besides Southeastern Conference is still number 1, but it looks like we're getting the Big 12 is kind of closing in there, and then another conference that's actually surprisingly deep, at least from my perspective, would be the Atlantic Coast Conference. I guess they're doing better than I would anticipate. And I guess kind of what I'm trying to tell you is the power conferences actually they're really staying up to where they. In other words, they haven't really lost anything at all. They've the only conferences that are actually making a push, I think, are like the American and trying to think what the other one was. I guess it's the Sun Belt, but the Sun Belt's not traditionally as good as the others. But they're a little bit. They've gotten better. I guess they brought in some better teams, I think, than they had before. But then the conference, one of the conferences that's not doing especially very good is the MAC. They seem to be underperforming from what I can tell. And then Conference USA isn't really doing that great either. But the one that's really not doing very well is the MAC right now, from what I can tell.
Yeah, the Sun Belt Conference actually has 4 wins against the Power 5 coming into the week. I kind of go through the conference rankings each week and kind of have my own tally. And I've been very impressed with the Sun Belt in particular. 4-11 against the Power 5 is pretty strong, and 24-19 overall.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
One other thing I thought I might just tell you, and this is something I kind of discovered on my own, and you can make whatever you want to of it, I guess. But remember like when the BCS still kind of had the say over kind of who went to what and where and how and all that.
Sure.
Well, what I wanted to find out, what, because they had kind of like a standard in place. I thought that, a conference necessarily had to kind of meet that standard, or they probably wouldn't, or a team or whatever. And what I kind of noticed, and you can make of it whatever you want to make of it, but it just seemed like the dividing line for the power conferences was, and this is based on, like I said, what I use, 60% relative to the rest of the division is what seems to be the dividing line. And then for the G5, it's 40%. So that kind of gives you an idea, I guess, of where the separation, I guess, between a G5 and a P5. It's about, and it's not like it's stone, but, and then the other thing was the SEC conference, and they're still very, they're almost 10% higher than the rest of in other words, they're at 70% against that same level. And so they're overperforming by about 10%. And the other ones, and the only one that's really not quite where they need to be, and they're actually almost there, but the Pac-12 is still a little bit like within 1% of 60, so they're a little bit under it, but close enough to where it probably shouldn't matter. So all the power conferences are really actually doing quite well this year, based on what I can tell, from what I can tell.
Very cool.
And I'll post those as soon as I can, but assuming I'm doing it correctly, it should give you a pretty good idea about where they all kind of stand. It's the same thing you're doing, but I'm using a different, I guess, a different formula than you use. So it'll be a way we can kind of compare the differences, I guess.
Very nice.
All right. Thanks.
Look forward to seeing it.
Good. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. We will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate everybody being here. Quite a day. Again, Oklahoma goes down in flames by 31 points. They're 0-2 in the Big 12. Michigan gets past Iowa. And we saw a big win out of Purdue over Minnesota. And, of course, two big games in the Atlantic Division of the ACC with Wake and Clemson winning. Bama gets past Arkansas and blows them out in the fourth quarter. USC's up, I believe, now by 18 points as they've just gone to commercial because I believe they just scored a touchdown. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, J-Dub.
How are you doing?
I'm good. What's going on tonight?
Well, I'm trying to survive the 26 minutes it took one of your prior callers from the one more thing until he actually got done. It is a true thing that can happen. It happens to me sometimes, and I'm always infuriated with myself when I let that happen. I survived, Mark. I endured the devastation that is the Iowa offense today at Kinnick Stadium. They were absolutely, to witness it in person was tragic. Now the crowd was very rough. Even the Iowa crowd themselves were very rough. They were letting Spencer Petras hear it, which I'm not exactly sure I like ripping on the. I mean, nobody wants to play well more than he does, of course.
Yeah.
They were letting him have it. They could have booed the hell out of Brian Ferentz all they wanted to, and it wouldn't have bothered me. But I was impressed by the size of Michigan's offensive line. These guys are huge. They walked down the ramp and out onto the field for the pregame, and it was like the sun went out. They were like a walking eclipse. I thought these guys are the biggest offensive line I've seen since 2016 Oklahoma. They were huge, and yet I don't think that was the biggest story in the Big Ten today. I think the biggest story in the Big Ten today is a story that nobody's talking about, that Chase Brown is leading the country in rushing, that since November 1st of last year, the number 3, if you go to November 1st, and you can't do the whole year, if you go to the November 1st and go forward, the number 3 total defense in the country is being played by Illinois. That they held Wisconsin at one point. Wisconsin had 24 rushing yards in the second half. They held a good Virginia offense to nothing. They held Wisconsin to nothing in Madison. Outside of what was probably a loss they really should have had, Illinois could easily be 5-0. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the West. I'm not saying they couldn't fall apart and lose 4 games in a row, but I think it's when we talk about the West, everybody wants to talk about Purdue beating Minnesota, who didn't have Abraham. They want to talk about Nebraska and everything that's going on over there. They want to talk about Iowa's offense. Illinois is not getting any play at all, and Bielema has done a great job, I think.
I would agree, and he's doing it his way, which means run first and play action off of that. And they picked up this Tommy DeVito from Syracuse, who had a really good season in 2019 at Syracuse and has basically been hurt ever since. But he has stayed upright and healthy. And as you mentioned, for the first 3 games of the season, I think Chase Brown had over 500 yards rushing, and he just keeps piling more on. And that is the first time that Illinois has outrushed Wisconsin in 21 years in a matchup head-to-head. And, to go into Camp Randall and win that game, not just squeak by and pull out a win, but dominate the game, win by 24 points. And as you mentioned, Brendan Armstrong is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They held them to 3 points, picked him off 3 times. He only had about 130 yards passing. They're just playing airtight, sound, fundamental, tough football.
They're very good up front on both. They don't have household names, and they don't have 5 stars up front, but they're very solid on both lines of scrimmage, and that is a Bielema calling card. That's what he had at Wisconsin. It's what he had from some of his better teams when he was in Fayetteville. He gets the big fellas, and he knows what to do with them. And again, Illinois, one of those schools where if they win 7 games, the fan base will go crazy. Well, they're almost there. They're 4-1. They should be 5-0. And again, I don't want to turn into an Illini conversation. I'm just saying I think that was an overlooked score. And I also want to say that I'm pleased to report that I am not changing my mind. The hardest dragon to kill is the Crimson one. They were up 28-0. Bryce got hurt. They mentally checked out. They kind of discombobulated themselves. And Arkansas, to their great credit, got back into the game 28-23. And then Alabama suddenly just turned it on again. And everybody talked about the 17-point spread. It ended up being 26.
Yeah, it was impressive to do that on the road against a team that controlled the line of scrimmage against Cincinnati and South Carolina and really outplayed Texas A&M. They just made some mistakes that led to a loss there. Easily could have been 5-0. I think Arkansas is a top 15, roughly 15 team in the country. And it was a good game for into the fourth quarter, but Alabama, when they needed to, even with a backup quarterback who was basically just a running threat, they still dominated the final 10 or 12 minutes of the game.
And we finally got to see, if you're a Bama fan, you finally got to see the foot speed that everybody's been talking about for Milroe.
Yeah.
Who apparently had some, according to some of the players, he and Jalen Waddle had some fantastic sprints in practice on who was actually faster. That's saying something to have a 6'4", 220-pound quarterback run with Jalen Waddle. But then we also got to see what could happen. I've been waiting all year for Jahmyr Gibbs to get a chance to break into the open.
Yep.
And if I was impressed with him because if he gets a step, it's good night, sweet prince. Now they've still got a long way to go. They've got Jimbo next week, which will be a primetime game. I think Alabama's going to do a number on Texas A&M, but they've got to go to Tennessee. They've got to handle Ole Miss, which has suddenly decided that they're going to run the ball all over the place. And they've still got the Iron Bowl, which is the Iron Bowl. And then I would like your thoughts on this. I think maybe the unreported story, or the story that's no one's really paying attention to, but it's there, is Brian Kelly can coach football. Now, you can say what he wants about he didn't get any of his coaches to go with him, and you can say about his accent, and you can say a little dance with the order. The man can coach football. LSU has talent. There was never an issue whether there's talent in Baton Rouge. It's there. Very quietly. As surprising considering, when LSU does anything, it usually makes a lot of noise. I think Brian Kelly's got LSU playing some pretty darn good football.
Yeah, so the one thing that Brian Kelly, I believe, has way over and beyond what we've seen out of the last two LSU coaches is, and they won national championships, of course, is that from the standpoint of building a program, and he doesn't have to build it from the ground up, but he has to build onto it. He inherits a lot of talent, but he also has to continue to build the program because it's not what it needs to be to challenge in the SEC. Is when it comes to, just look at Nick Saban. He's the master of it. Detail. Great coaches are detailed. They don't necessarily themselves have to be super detailed, but they have to build a program and a process that is detailed to a T. So there is nothing that they're missing. And from everything I perceive and everything I hear and everything I've been able to observe over the years is Brian Kelly knows how to run a program. Again, like you say, he's not the most likable guy in the world. He's not the guy that everybody's just going to be giggling with and think is just the funniest guy in the world. And we want to be around him, but he's demanding and he knows structure and he knows organization and he knows how to develop, and he just knows how to run an organization. And so they basically blew a game against Florida State. I'm not excusing it, but it was his first game ever at the school. And they played a Mississippi State team that is a really good football team that took Texas A&M to the cleaners. And LSU, after getting behind in the first half, much like they did tonight against Auburn, dominated them in the second half. And the same thing happened tonight. They got caught off guard early. They were in a hostile environment, as you well know, one of the toughest places to play in college football. They weathered the storm, and then they dominated the second half.
Yeah, I think they're scary good. I think Bama's got some serious challenges left on their schedule. I don't think it's a cakewalk at all for the Tide. I think they're the best. I think they're the best team in the West. I think they're when it comes right down to it, they're just a step above everybody else. But as we saw tonight in Columbia, can somebody get you if you're not paying attention? Georgia almost got caught not paying attention. Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the Iron Bowl. There's still traps laid out in front of Alabama. If they get to Atlanta undefeated, or even with one loss, if they get to Atlanta, considering what they would have to go through, especially now if they don't have Bryce Young for a game or two, that'll be very satisfactory. Thank you very much.
One other quick note on Brian Kelly that just hit me after I completed my little soliloquy was that they've got John Emery back. He was suspended for the first couple games. Was he suspended? I don't want to get that wrong. Or was he just hurt? For some reason, I thought he was suspended. Anyway, they got John Emery back, and he was a difference maker today. He's their best running back by far. And so they were hamstrung against Florida State, where basically they didn't have a running game from the running back position. Basically, Jaden Daniels had to create the entire thing, and they lost that game to Florida State by a whisker. If they have John Emery, I'm pretty confident they win that game, and they're sitting at 5-0 right now.
Yep. They're. I think we're going to hear from them in some form Maybe not. Maybe it won't be Bama. Maybe it'll be somebody else. But I think I think we're going to hear some noise from LSU before it's all said and done. Nice wins by Clemson today. Georgia survives. That's what you got to do sometimes when you're at the top. You just got to survive. Hey, it's a W, baby. We move on. Ohio State looks good. I was really impressed with Michigan today in person. JJ was impressive. I will tell you that. I was impressed with him. And again, boy, the Michigan offensive line, they're just physically, they're just huge. And they just pushed Iowa around. If they can do that, if they can control the run game like that. Now I know at the end of the game the numbers were fairly close. I think the total offense was only like 50 yards between the two teams, but that was not indicative of what was happening on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa got a late touchdown, and they were never seriously in this game. I mean, Michigan controlled this game. They were clearly the better team. Oh boy, would I love a ticket to the shoe when those two teams hook up. That will be great.
Yeah, it should be.
Hey, Mark, thanks for taking the call. Appreciate everything you do. Thumbs up on Amazon, folks. You know the routine.
Thanks, J-Dub.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mark.
you calling. Have a good night. We're going to release our top 25 that actually makes sense. If you're unfamiliar, please stand by, hold on tight, and expect to be surprised. Top 25 that actually makes sense will be released on Sunday. And it's my goal starting this week. I should have started this with week 1. I actually did start it with week 1 because I produced 3 videos in August that were week 1 previews: Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Oregon, and Utah and Florida, that were well received. So I should be doing this every week, where I'm taking maybe the 3 or 4 biggest games of the week and delivering my preview, not talking to contributors or anything like that, but delivering my preview. So those have been well received. So I should probably get back on that. And I wanted to do it this past week, and we'll see what we have coming up for week 6. Why don't we? Why not? Nobody on the line right now. So let's check it out for week 6. And, why don't we do it this way? Let's all play along together. Week 6. Okay, because of the hurricane, we are going to be blessed with a little Wednesday football, and not even the Maction. It's SMU and UCF, pretty competitive game. It should be ESPN2, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday. So again, we got some Wednesday football. So we only have to survive Tuesday. If you like the NFL, only Tuesday without football this week. Friday, Big Ten game. Nebraska, they finally beat an FBS team. They had lost 9 consecutive times to FBS teams. They're playing at Rutgers. Houston, Memphis, usually a pretty entertaining game in the American. Colorado State, Nevada, UNLV, San Jose State. Okay, the big boys on Saturday. Michigan, Indiana on the road. You would think that the Wolverines would stomp the Hoosiers. Tennessee and the aforementioned by Jeff, LSU. Whoo, that's a good one right there. Noon on ESPN, Tennessee, LSU in Death Valley. Texas, Oklahoma, of course, the Red River rivalry. And now with Texas playing much better football, at least as of late, meaning today against West Virginia, they dominated that game. And the Oklahoma defense having all sorts of issues. Hudson Card and company in that wide receiver room. Oklahoma, the way they've played the last 2 weeks on defense, now playing that wide receiver room. Wow. This will most likely be a shootout, if not a Texas romp. Texas OU in Dallas at noon. Arkansas, Mississippi State. That's always an entertaining game. The Hogs have to get off the deck after 2 consecutive losses, and Mississippi State riding high after dominating Texas A&M today. Every time I flipped to that game, Max Johnson was getting sacked. I believe Mississippi State picked off 3 passes. They've got a defensive back, Forbes, who has had 4 pick sixes in his career. Mizzou, Florida play at noon. TCU and Kansas. Talk about the under-the-radar game of the week next week. TCU's 4-0. Kansas is 5-0. They're both 2-0 in conference play. No, TCU is 1-0 in conference play. Undefeated matchup, TCU at Kansas. That's where College Game Day should be. And I don't even like that came out of my mouth, but that seems to be on other people's minds where College Game Day should go. I really don't care, but that's where they should go. Purdue at Maryland. The games of, and I'm not talking about titanic clashes, we're not talking about Alabama and Georgia playing, but important games within the conference. They just keep piling up. These are all important games. Michigan, Indiana is probably not going to be a game, but in terms of both being competitive and important, Tennessee, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, although the Sooners are almost out of the conference race already, Arkansas, Mississippi State is meaningful. And again, TCU, Kansas is a huge game in the Big 12. Purdue and Maryland is a big game. Auburn and Georgia. Brian Harsin cannot catch a break, can he? His team played a pretty darn good football game tonight at home, but they come up empty 21-17, and now they've got to go to Athens, and Georgia might be ready to break out and play and put together a complete game. Don't disregard coming off a difficult game and an important win for Oklahoma State at Baylor, that they've got to play Texas Tech now. Look at this next game that you see there in the Pac-12. Considering what UCLA did against Washington, now they're playing back at home in the Rose Bowl against Utah. Utah should be a substantial favorite, and when I say substantial, I mean 5, 6, 7 points in that range. Pitt and Virginia Tech are suddenly slumming in the ACC Coastal Division. Wisconsin Northwestern, suddenly that is not worth much of anything. Ohio State goes to East Lansing to take on Michigan State in an interesting 4 p.m. Eastern Time ABC game. That's interesting. 4 p.m. What time is there's a noon game and then at 4. Don't know what's going on there where it's not a 3:30 game. Interesting. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. Washington, Arizona State. What we thought was going to be a big game in the ACC Coastal Division, and still is really, because even though Miami's lost 2 games, they're both out of conference. North Carolina, undefeated in the ACC, I believe, right? They lost to Notre Dame. Yeah. North Carolina already has a win against Virginia Tech. And I believe that's it in the ACC. North Carolina at Miami. Important game in the Coastal. Later on Saturday, Clemson should win at Boston College, Washington State, USC, South Carolina, Kentucky, some mild interest there. Not necessarily an important game because neither of these teams, of course, neither one plays in a conference, and therefore there's no conference championship game on the line, and they both lost games, so they're out of it. But it's just an entertaining matchup, BYU and Notre Dame. Here's an important game. Kansas State's taking on Iowa State. K-State wins against Texas Tech today. Adrian Martinez with another huge day for a second consecutive week. K-State is 2-0 in the Big 12, taking on Iowa State on the road. Iowa cannot look past Illinois by any stretch. I got to think that this point spread is going to be like within a field goal. Texas A&M at Alabama. revenge on Alabama's mind, of course, concerning what happened last year at College Station. Jalen Milroe may have to be the starting quarterback at Alabama. Florida State, North Carolina State, important game in the ACC Atlantic. And Oregon State and Oregon are in action as well. And in what is typically a huge game in the Mountain West, not so much this year, Fresno State and Boise State not quite on their games this year. All right. Right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Please check out our top 25 that actually makes sense. And I aim to deliver a lot of great content coming up this week. And we will be live again on Tuesday night, if not sooner. And with the college football playoff committee selections coming out, let's see, I believe 2 weeks from Tuesday, that will soon be our focus on Tuesday nights, is having a watch party, watching all the college football playoff stuff together. All right, everyone, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Please hit the like button on your way out. And why don't you tell somebody this week about us? Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football right here. And we will see you all soon.